We're going to go through what Apple's accusing this YouTuber of doing. And I remember I used to watch his live streams. He has a weekly podcast, sort of like this, where they talk about main events in the tech world. It's more specifically geared towards Apple, and they do it only once a week. But I remember seeing this specific episode.
Well, since we've all been waiting on my iOS 19 video, that's coming out tomorrow officially because we have everything approved, and
Nice.
I'm not even going to go into that. I will show you a little something. Would you like to see what iMessage looks like in iOS 19?
Sure.
Okay, here you go. You're looking at iMessage, and let me turn down the brightness here. There you go, iMessage. iOS 19. How do we feel?
Does it look kind of ugly?
You think it looks ugly?
How does it look uglier somehow?
You see like the cute little bubble icons, Vision OS icons, slightly different keyboard,
But it looks, I feel like they didn't like actually redesign it. They only put random
No.
And for a split second, I didn't know this was going to unfold. Obviously, nobody did. But I remember. But if you play with Apple, they will come after you. They banned me. Right now, they haven't sued me. At least I don't think so. I haven't had anybody serve me. But they blocked my iCloud account. I'm not surprised they did this. I remember this episode showing. So what he did, and let me pull up this article. So I wrote this article on my website. Now the link is in the description box below. So this is the article, Liquid Ass, right? Now, before this was released, the YouTuber, I'm going to click on this article and tell me if you've seen this guy. His name is John Prosser. John Prosser. This is his YouTube channel is FTP. This is the guy right here. And his YouTube channel or his podcast name is the Genius Bar Podcast. It's strictly Apple based. Now, when you say Apple fanboy, this guy John and his co-host are the definition of an Apple fanboy. They joke, they laugh amongst each other about how they just buy any Apple product that's put out, even if the product sucks, even if it's mad expensive, even if it has bad reviews, just any Apple product they buy, they say, here, take my money. In fact, they laugh about that, right? And I'm going to tell you how crazy this story is. So I have everything written down. I tried to write it down, and I'm not going to read everything from start to finish. I'm going to briefly breeze through it, but you're going to want to hear. This is like some 007 type stuff. Like, I read the details, and I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like, I see why Apple's suing him. Now, the lawsuit has been filed in California State Court. So check this out. I actually have the lawsuit right here. United States District Court, Northern District of California. Apple Inc. is the plaintiff, and the defendant is Michael Ramifications and John Prosser. So John Prosser is the YouTuber. He's the Genius Bar host, podcast host. Now, who is this Michael Ramifications guy? Well, that's his asset, shall we say. You know how CIA, they have CIA spies, and then they have assets, right? So if you're not familiar with the intelligence world, they'll go out, find somebody that has information or has somebody close to that person that they can get information from, right? So let's say John Prosser is the CIA agent, and let's say Michael Ramifications is the CIA asset, somebody you can go recruit, somebody you can go persuade, maybe with some monetary funds, whatever the case is. John Prosser kind of had the help of Michael Ramifications. So let's get back to the offense. So Apple is suing John Prosser, the host of the Genius Bar, because he leaked in this episode, I think it was maybe 6 months ago, right? It was before iOS Liquid Ass was put out to the public. And I remember watching this. I was thinking, damn, how does he have a copy of iOS already? Like, he had screenshots, he had screen recordings of iOS 26, right? Nobody else did. And I was like, how the hell? And he was showing it on his podcast. As you can tell, that screenshot right there. Just about, I think, a few minutes worth of going through the operating system, each system app, the settings, messaging, calls, FaceTime, complete redesign. This was about 6 months ago, so way before iOS 26 was put out. Well, he had the help of his asset, Michael, of getting this content. So Apple's upset at John here that you see for showing this before its release. Now, Apple is suing him under the, what is it? Apple is suing him for misappropriation of trade secrets under the Defend Trade Secrets Act, 18 USC 1836. And then also violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, 18 USC 1030. So let me tell you how John got a hold of a pre-release of iOS 26. So Apple's complaint outlines what it claims is the series of events that led to these leaks, which is some 007 type of storyline. So it's centered around a development iPhone in the possession of Ramacotti's friend and Apple employee Ethan Lipnick. So you have John, the podcast host, you have his friend or asset, Ramicotti. Now, Ramacotti's friend is an Apple employee and works with Apple, right, in the developer department. So, in his name, the Apple employee, Ethan Lipnick. So, according to Apple, John, the podcast host, and his asset, Ramicotti, plotted to access Lipnick's phone, the Apple employee's phone, without the Apple employee knowing, acquiring his passcode, and then using location tracking tactics, dare I say, an Apple AirTag, to determine when he would be away from his home and from that phone. Crazy, right? So John, the podcast host, reportedly offered financial compensation to his asset, Ramicotti, in return for assisting with accessing the development iPhone and its operating system. Apple says Ramicotti, the asset, accessed Lipnick's developmental iPhone and made a FaceTime call to John Presser. Now, remember, this is when Lipnick, the Apple employee, is not at home. So he had to break in this Apple employee's home and gain access to this unreleased iPhone with this iOS Liquid Ass 26 on it. Apple says Ramicotti accessed Lipnick's development iPhone and made a FaceTime call to John, the podcast host, showing off iOS 26 running on the development iPhone. And that John recorded the call with screen capture tools. John, the podcast host, then shared those videos with others on that podcast episode, on a following podcast episode, and used them to make recreated renders of iOS 26 for his videos. Lipnick's phone, the Apple employee, his phone contained a significant amount of additional Apple trade secrets and information that has not yet been made publicly or disclosed yet. Apple says it does not know how much of that information, of that private Apple information, is in the possession of John and his asset, Ramicotti. Now, in order to protect trade secrets, Apple has filed the lawsuit to request an injunction against further disclosure of Apple's confidential trade secret information, and they're seeking damages over the misappropriation of them. Lipnick's employment with Apple has already been terminated over this failure to follow company policy to protect developmental and unreleased devices and software. Lipnick also failed to disclose the breach to Apple once he learned of it through others who recognized his apartment in the recorded FaceTime call, with Apple learning of the details from an anonymous email. Holy shit, this is crazy. So, Apple fired him because they're pissed off, even though it wasn't his fault. He had no idea what was going on. They still fired his ass. They're suing both the person that broke in the apartment. I'm surprised he'll probably see criminal charges for trespassing, breaking and entering, burglary. Along with these, I would not be surprised. And John, the podcast host, is obviously being sued as well. So these are major charges. These are felonies. Like, I don't know. I probably could look up the punishment if found guilty. It's probably going to be fines within the hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe million. I'm guessing hundreds of thousands. I don't know if it comes with any jail time. I wouldn't be surprised. If I were him, I would cut a deal and whatever you got to do to stay out of jail. But this is insane. They can pay a hefty fine, but I'll pay a fine. I just want to keep my ass out of jail. I mean, here's how brainwashed these fanboys are. Even after, I guarantee you, even after being sued by Apple, even after possibly, dare I say, a couple months of jail, they are so brainwashed on Apple. Apple's going to screw them every which way from Saturday, and these guys are still going to use Apple iPhone, MacBook, iPads. Apple's going to screw them, and they're still going to be using Apple products. If I got screwed by Samsung like this, if I were in his shoes, and let's say it was Apple or it was Samsung, if this ever happened to me, you can bet I would never use their products again, ever.